to DAX Machina with your hosts, Naoma Finn, Steve Wildman Munrotis, and D.A. Roberts. Join us as we explore writing, books, authors, and all things horror. We will delve into the sightings, reports, encounters, and tales of monsters. We will also explore the writings of D.A. Roberts along with others in the horror genre. We will investigate the possibilities that monsters may not be safely locked away in the pages of books. They might just walk among us even now. Grab some popcorn and lock the doors. It's going to be a creepy journey. Welcome to DAX Machina.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to DAX Machina. Joining me tonight is my partner in crime, Steve Wildman Munrotis. MK Davis is in the house tonight. He's having some camera issues at the moment, but he'll be hopefully clearing that up here in just a moment. And Naoma Finn from the Dixie Cryptid podcast will also be joining us very shortly. She's just popping in. There we go. All right, everybody's in the house. Mr. Davis, thank you for joining us tonight, sir.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you back.
Likewise.
I think we've got some people excited in the chat room to have you. I've seen several comments already in the chat room. Folks saying they're looking forward to having you on the show. I know you're a very busy man. I don't know how long we'll have you tonight. Just let us know how much time you've got, and we'll go from there. I don't want to keep you up past your bedtime because I know it's kind of late.
I'll hang with you as long as you want. If I get into a good conversation, the time will go by so fast.
Well, we will do our best to do that.
I don't seem to be having any luck with my camera. It says it's being used in another application, which I'm not aware of that. So I don't know what the deal is there.
Well, if you need to restart or restart your computer or something like that, we can wait. We'll talk amongst ourselves until you get back if you want to try it.
Okay, let me do that and just see if that helps. Sometimes that'll work.
All righty.
Okay, folks, Mr. Davis is going to be restarting his computer, and what we're going to be talking about tonight once we've got MK back, and I'm so thrilled to have him with us. We're going to be talking about his experience with the Patterson Gimlin footage, and we're also going to be discussing his own personal encounters as well as the new footage that came out of Idaho. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that footage. I posted a link to some of it on my author page, which is facebook.com/DARobertsauthor. And it's really interesting footage. I've been watching part of it, and I've got to say I'm very intrigued. It's if it's legit, it's going to be this generation's Patterson Gimlin. We'll have MK talk about it at more length because I know he's really done some in-depth look at it. But from what I can see, if it's a hoax, it's a damn good one. Then they spend a hell of a lot of money on a suit because you can see muscle movement and the way it moves. It's broader and bigger than a standard human, unless they were, Andre the Giant. So we'll be showing some of that very, very soon, and hopefully you guys will get the experience of MK's insight on this because he's, like I said, he's the man when it comes to video editing. Naoma, thank you for joining us. Are you having a busy night?
You can call me Cannonball tonight.
Cannonball.
I'm a train wreck.
Oh no.
Oh no.
I've been playing catch up all day.
Oh, bless it.
Man, the chat room is hopping tonight. Go ahead, sorry.
You could also call me Condiment.
Condiment?
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
I love it.
Hi, Jamie. Sal says, evening, y'all. Roll Tide.
Oh, had to get that in there.
Hedigan, woohoo from Landon. Astro Blaster says, it doesn't get any better than this. A chill in the air follows back. Creepy stuff. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Mr. Davis, you back, sir?
I am, but it still won't let me access the camera. I'm going to get on my phone and try to just use the phone.
Okay.
So
Don't use the phone's basic browser. Use like Chrome or Firefox, because the phone's built-in browser will not let you log in.
okay, you think there could be a similar problem here with this camera? Because
It could be.
I'm in a Chrome browser.
Okay, well, Chrome is usually
Chrome
what
should
we
work.
use. Chrome should work.
You're not on Skype or anything, right?
No. I just clicked on the link there in Messenger, and it just says disabled camera.
If you've got any other applications open, like Facebook, or if Skype is just downsized and not open, it might have taken the camera from you.
Okay, I just clicked out of Facebook. I came up through Facebook to get on Messenger. So I just cut that out. Let's see if that helps. Still says unable to access camera. Make sure it's properly connected. That's all. It's connected as good as it can.
Well, I guess we just proceed without video then. It's not a problem.
Yeah, we could still hear you and interview you.
Can you see us okay?
I can't.
Awesome. Well,
right.
I'll be able to share the screen and bring up some of the videos we were talking about. But I really wanted to pick your brain on some of that new video that NVTV posted for the Bigfoot out of I think it was out of Idaho. Wanted to get your input on that because the footage is really intriguing.
Oh yeah, it's real interesting. When I first saw it, I was kind of taken aback by something on it. Definitely reminded me of the Patterson film. You know, you got a picture up there, yeah.
Yeah, I've got the video staged. Just going to let it run in silence and let you talk about it.
Yeah, it's I hesitated. A lot of people had objections. First, one thing, then another, but I hesitated to dismiss it because I had not looked into it enough, and there were some unanswered questions there that I really it needed to be answered. I don't know who this Mr. Anders is. Have y'all done any checking and see who this person is?
I've asked around with a couple of sources I know, but I haven't got any answers back yet.
Yeah, he kind of has his little show is kind of like a podcast, sort of. It's got two people on it, and they discuss this as well as he's got some other videos as well. And what I see in it is very similar to the Patterson film, to the point where I wonder if it's not actually borrowed from the Patterson film, and that was my concern. That people are pretty clever when it comes to computerization, and the video itself does not. It's very low frame rate.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, there's a lot of lost action between the frames, and that concerned me too, because almost all video cameras, 30 frames per second is probably, so what is this one doing being shot and replayed at such a low frame rate? Mm-hmm. Well, if a person were to use CGI, where it's labor intensive to create something of quality, they might tend to want to keep it at a low frame rate, So, I'm trying to be the devil's advocate, but I don't want to dismiss something that's good and right and proper. So I kind of say, well, these are my observations. I don't even know Mr. Anders. I can't get in his head, that's for sure. But some of the other people who've done critiques of it, one being Para Breakdown,
mm-hmm.
He made comments like the same type bushes, the same type this and that. I don't know about all that. He seemed to be awful anxious to be on the negative side. I I think that it's you're in pretty good shape if you do everything, because you're going to be right most of the time.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, that's a very envious place to be. But what I'm looking for is the 1%. That somebody may actually get something of worth, of a natural being. And so I would definitely not want to have any part in dismissing something that's real. I looked at it and I said, well, I'm going to try to do some enhancements on it, brightness, surface brightness up, see what I can see, and stabilize it. And I had some problems. I have a very good stabilization program, and it literally did nothing for it. It couldn't do it. It had zero effect on it.
That's odd.
Very odd. So I kind of looked into it a little bit, and it appears that the shaking was artificially applied to the video. In other words, probably shot on a either on a tripod, or if it's CGI, it's obviously not shot, but it wouldn't unwind it, which is what they do. They take that natural handshake and they align everything back up. But if you, and I've tried it, I tried it on some other videos. I said, let me just call it active camera. And if you put the active camera and it puts this natural shake in it. So in other words, so you can make a video appear to be a handheld camera, that you're not perfectly still with, and you can make it go to any degree of shake.
Yeah, and, like the old monster movies, the shaky cam footage.
Right. But if you do it that way, well, then your stabilization software can't undo it. So and mine couldn't. It couldn't undo it. So that gave me more cause for concern about the video. Low frame rates, and the fact that I could not stabilize it. I could take it apart frame by frame and hand stabilize it. But the question is this something I want to do? If I have suspicions.
Do you think that the low frame rate could be explained by it being taken by a trail cam?
I guess that's possible. That would be.
I'm just playing devil's advocate. I mean, as the video world goes, I know my cell phone automatically records at a much higher frame rate. But I would think trail cams probably have a much lower frame rate because they don't need to be high resolution.
Well, the trail cams tend not to have a built. They're attached to a tree and pretty stable. So you see the shake in it. So at least he wanted the appearance of being held in someone's free hand. So I think this is an extraordinary, even if it's not real. Someone knew an awful lot about the subject, and they had either the resources or the labor to put into something to make something of quality. It looks a lot like the Patterson subject in general build, in appearance. So I like I said, I don't summarily dismiss it, but suspicions that it was something created of quality. For what's his purpose? I don't know. Maybe to get hits. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's a genuinely interested person. I've seen that happen before. People who've actually, I know there was a lady that she had well, my daughter told me that she thought she'd seen a Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's on the way to work, and she told me where. So I drove out there. I passed it back and forth looking, and then all of a sudden I saw it. It was a plywood figure of a Bigfoot that had been erected in a little grove of trees. And it was early in the morning. She came by, and shadowy looking figure. But when I saw what it was, I went up to the house and talked to the people in the house. And I said, "Why? Do you have a Bigfoot in your yard?" She said, "Well, when I was about 13, I lived over there in a little town in Louisiana called Jigger, and they were clearing land." And she said, "I was walking out there where they had piled up the trash pretty high, the treetops and things." She said, "This thing walked out from the other side and just stared at me. And I stared at it and then walked away into the tree line and was gone." And she said, "I've been just interested in the subject ever since." And sometimes when people put an extraordinary amount of effort, they may have seen something or been motivated. And I'm really interested in what Mr. Anders would have to say about it.
Exactly.
I know it, even if it's not real, I still want to know his story.
Well, that frame right there that's on the screen now, if that is a man in a suit, it's a very big man, and it's an incredibly good costume.
I would
details
have
are really
to agree
good.
with you on that. And it appears to show some bare nakedness.
Yeah,
Good.
I would wonder if it's not real, if this is not test footage for a movie, and they released some of the test footage just to get hits, to get interest up in the movie.
Well, that's possible. Somebody put some real tender love and care into that thing, and it doesn't have long head hair. The head hair is managed.
Mm-hmm.
I brightened up the surface of it, and you can see that it's trimmed along the back, straight across.
That sounds like a costume then.
Bigfoot has a good barber.
Well, yeah, it kind of looks like the Hulk in a way, the way the hair is sitting up on the head like that. Like I said, we live in a world where lots of things are possible,
Right.
and we've seen all of these Marvel Studios and all of that, and they have what they call predictive software that can take this low frame rate, fill in up to 60 frames a second, and it will be smooth as silk and as lifelike as you could imagine. They use that in cartoons to create cartoons. They have the artist draw a cartoon here and there and there and there, and then it fills in. And you get things, like Pixar,
Mm-hmm.
that has these lifelike motions on it. And somebody had done that to the Patterson film. It was saying it was remastered, but nothing was any different, and the amount of resolution wasn't any better. But it was showing it 60 frames per second using that predictive software, and that's really good eye candy. But it is really unscientific, because when you're looking at something forensically, you're wanting to look at what's there, not what the computer wants to show you. It makes up the in between frames. It just creates itself, and that works real good for entertainment. But if you want to find certain scientific things on it, then you can't trust those in between frames.
Yeah.
So that didn't really leave us anywhere, of any value. It looks really good. Anytime you can get a film to be that lifelike, that motion to be that smooth, What I did with the Patterson film was to take frame 1 and frame 2, and then I would take frame 2 and superimpose it over frame 1 for the in-betweens with transparency of about 30 or 40, line everything up. And then I would do that 10 times. I would, and each time it would be progressively, more transparent to the point where you had frame 2 by itself again. So it made the jump between frame 1 and frame 2 in 10 stages. So when you played that at proper speed, you got smoothness rather than the jump between the frames. That's more scientific because it was 100% done with the film, and there was nothing predicted. That was probably the best you can do to defeat the low frame rate. The creates flicker. I hate to criticize the Patterson film in any way because it was such an outstanding piece of footage, and you get back up toward the original film, and it gets very, very difficult to argue against it. Some people will argue against it no matter what, but the great majority who have seen, the stabilized versions that are of high quality, they pretty much, it's accepted that it was actually there and that it reflecting light back into the camera. And then you can argue all day long about the nature of it, but it is essentially biomechanically proper.
Well, now that you've mentioned the similarities between that Idaho footage and the Patterson Gimlin, now that I'm looking at the PG film here from your website, I completely see what you're talking about. Yeah, there are a lot of similarities in the way it movement and the movement and the way it's shaped. I don't see the similarities they were talking about, similar foliage, because there seems to be a lot of boulders and stuff in the foreground here. So the foliage doesn't look the same to me, but definitely the movement and some of the structure looks very, very similar to the other footage.
Yeah, it looks to me like they at least use the Patterson film as a model. It gave them extraordinary accuracy for what they were trying to do.
This particular image of the Idaho footage, that the foot looks to me like what has been described as the mid-tarsal break, like it's flexing differently. The back foot. You
noticed that too, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's just not present in humans.
The foot was very well done. If it's real, it's real. I would love for it to be real.
I would as well. But if it is real, why did they put artificial shaking in it and such a low frame rate?
Right, exactly. So I tend and give it kind of a Hulk-like haircut.
Mm-hmm.
But I admire it. I think that it probably is. They probably based it on some film,
mm-hmm.
and for what reasons only they know. I don't know how. I would love to question Mr. Anders just to see what he would have to say about it.
See if I can make that happen. I'd like to talk to him myself.
It would be a really good and insightful show if you could get him and he's willing to talk.
Exactly.
Could the low frame rate possibly be related to some kind of video compression, like it was uploaded?
That's possible. Yeah. I don't know that it would jump to that low frame rate. what you do is you just lose some quality. It becomes you can roughness, but it don't usually. You see how far between each frame the movement of the subject makes a big movement between the frames. In order to smooth it, you'd have to speed that thing up to really high frame rate, and then he'd be walking so fast it'd be over in just a second. That was the problem the Patterson film had for many years. I did that work I was telling you about. I call it a transition. I trans from one frame to the other using 10 stages. I did that in order for the film to be taken back until it's biomechanically correct. When you do that, it's running at slightly less than 16 frames per second. And the flicker is just extremely annoying. So I did that to take that flicker out in order to run the film to where it's biomechanically correct.
Yeah.
And when I say biomechanically correct, is that we're all built to walk in the most efficient manner.
Mm-hmm.
And so we whenever we swing our arm, gravity brings it back. If you had to push it back, you would lose a lot of your energy after a period of time. So if you're walking too fast, you're having to push those arms and push those legs, and they don't fall back naturally. So you back off, you back off, you back off until you see the arms swing back naturally. And you try to hold that as the correct frame rate. And that camera, using 25 speed Kodacolor 2 film, would have to have a low frame rate. It's not very sensitive film. If you've ever done any film camera work, the 25 speed, it's only for very bright conditions, but it's very, very fine grained, very high quality. People would make these huge, wall size dioramas and stuff with photos with 25 speed film, and it would stay sharp. Kodacolor 2 was probably the best film Kodak made other than Technicolor. But it had some limitations. They coveted the developing process. It was done very, very differently than any other film. And only 2 places in America even did it at the time the film was taken. 2 weeks minimum on turnaround time. And even now, they still covet that. Secrets get out, but they still covet this. It was it was ridiculous, is what it was. They would take the film off the reel, spaghetti style, and they would dip it. They would dip it in a dye, like red dye. And then they calculated the time it took for that dye to penetrate all your different layers of a color photograph and go to the bottom, which is where red is. Okay, when they figure, okay, it's at the bottom, they take it out right quick and they wash it. Okay, so you got nothing but red. If you showed the film, it'd be all red. It's in all 3 layers. Okay, then they put it in bleach and they time it to where the bleach will soak through the top 2 layers, but not the 3rd one where the red is. Then they take it out right quick and wash it. So now you have your red in its proper place, just in 1 layer on the bottom. And so then they dip it in the next color, but they time it differently because they don't want it to soak through all the way to the red. They want it to just get 2 layers. So They let it soak through, and then when the timing is just right, they pull it out, and they do that until you have all the layers soaked in the proper colors, and then they and it creates the color film that you would think that it was not any way that would even work. It's so complex, and that it took a special training for the technicians, and they got paid extra for developing Kodacolor 2. So, but it ended up as one of the most stable films that they ever made, and it's kept stored properly. 100 years later, you could show that film, and it would be great.
Well, that's good film for them to. Unfortunate, that's what they shot it on. I had a question from the chat room. Sal Passos wanted to know: do we see a mid-tarsal break in the Patty film?
I hesitate to say mid-tarsal break. I see some extraordinary flexibility in the foot. Now, as far as actual, when you talk about a break, you're talking about bones that are separating. That are actually bending a joint where we don't have a joint. And there's a lot of argument about that. And there was a Dr. Eisner, who was not a Bigfooter, but he was a podiatrist of many, many years experience. And he definitely disagreed with an extra joint. But no one, I don't think, not even him, argued with the fact that anything walking in those conditions would tend to have a more flexible foot, just by virtue of the fact that support for the foot bends around things and pushes off things, and it's not the same as if you wear a boot your whole life. But there again, I'm not an expert on that, and there are some places in the film that show the foot doing some pretty good bending. So, well, I hesitate to say categorically that if there's no mid-tarsal break, that could explain it. And I also have some confidence in some of the other people who have more expertise than me. Dr. Meldrum, I kind of refer people to him on that subject. And yeah, there it goes, is showing the break. And I think this is something that he drew up on that. I know that you're supporting weight, lots and lots of weight.
Mm-hmm.
And I have come across tracks down on Bluff Creek and some other places that clearly show tremendous weight. And it would not surprise me that there were a different structure inside the foot to help with that. You're talking about something that the Patty subject probably goes 1,000 pounds or over. So back in the day when I first started my investigation, there was a lot of argument about that. There was an organization called the North American Science Institute, and they were paid $75,000 to examine the film. There was a gentleman by the name of Jeff Glickman who, when he was done, he estimated her weight at 1,400 pounds.
Wow.
And
That's some very, very dense muscle and bone.
Right. Everybody just dismissed it right away. But it's looking more and more, from what I can get out of it and looking at the tracks that I was able to examine, that may be entirely an accurate figure. And he used biomechanics to calculate weight on the film. So you're looking at something that's clearly, it's not us. We don't weigh that much, and it can't be us. So the next question is, well, who or what is it? Um, and there's no CGI back then, and there's no suit that mimic what you see on the Patterson film. So the Patterson film is just exactly what it portrays to be. And
Yeah, if I recall correctly, they talked to the special effects artist that did Planet of the Apes, and he said he couldn't duplicate. He was unable to duplicate the creature in the film.
yeah, Bobby Short interviewed him. He was in a nursing home, and she told me that when she went there, he told her that it wasn't him, and she asked him, well, why did he allow people to pin it on him, to say that he did it? He said, I didn't stop that kind of talk because it was good for business. He said, I am in the business of creating fantasy creatures, and those people, they didn't have salaries. They got paid by the job for what they did. So if he could do something as good as the Patterson film, and people thought that he could do it for their next film, well, they're going to go looking for him.
Exactly.
So it was good for business.
Yeah.
And he said, no, he didn't do it. And he didn't see how anyone else could have.
Yeah, I remember reading several papers and articles on it, where special effects people, even more modern times, would have said, the muscle flexion, the way the suit, the way it looks, they couldn't duplicate it even with more modern technology without using CGI.
Well, CGI, it's not foolproof.
Mm-hmm.
Most people can pick out CGI.
Yeah.
It's getting, everything, like everything else, it improves over time, but it's still an art form.
Very much so.
And I kind of be that perhaps that might be what we see there in Mr. Anders is something done by a very skilled person. And with using the Patterson film as a model. And I mean, I don't know what to say about it. It's a part of me that admires that degree of quality. If he would, if he told me today, yes, that's what we did, I wouldn't be pissed off at him. I would like to just talk a little bit about it. Is this what we have to look forward to? If those of us who are looking into the matter, so that is there? I'd like to know if there's any test, or anything like that. I think that by and large, all of us are aptly critical. We look at things in a realistic way. Most of us do. No one wants to have anything put over on them. And it's easy to do these days, but most of the time when you get a hoaxed up Bigfoot or made up Bigfoot, it's fuzzy, of short duration, dark, all of that things that makes it life easier for the person doing it. It's when you get something like this that's that good, I do want to ask a few questions.
I don't blame you. We had a question from one of the audience members. The Facebook user says, "What about the Bigfoot that was used in the $6 Million Man series?"
I remember watching it when I was much younger fella. I could tell it was a suit.
Yeah,
I wasn't into Bigfoot.
I agree.
But Like I said, it's there's a certain part of me that admires someone who puts a bigger effort into making something of quality.
Mhm.
But you know, in my long illustrious career in this thing, I find that there are a lot of people who bring to the table what they can, and they all try, if they're hoaxing or lying, to make themselves believable.
Mhm.
And it's kind of up to the person. It's a buyer beware type thing. This Bob Aronimus, said he was the man in the suit of the Patterson film, which he joins a good 4 or 5 others anyway. That'd be a pretty crowded suit overall. That one of them with this be like the old potato race. They all be in that thing.
I was thinking more like the 2 kids in the long coat trying to sneak into an adult movie.
Yeah. Well, it's he says lots of things, and if you're a student of the film, you pick up on those things. He said that the sandbar was white, and the sandbar, there's no white sand down there. What you're looking at is a copied film that you copy it 2 or 3 times, and it builds contrast, and then the whites get whiter and the darks get darker. And so you end up with a silhouette walking on a white beach. But the original film will show you, and I've been down there, it's shale sand. If you know the color of shale, it's if it's dry, you see how white that is? It's got an oil sheen to that shale in bright sunshine. It's got a little bit of an exposure problem anyway. And then if you copy, and you copy the copy, and then you copy that copy, it just becomes white. And I knew when he said that he'd never been there. Because he got his information off of television, showing those generated copies, which is what TV does. For years, they showed a shaky, grainy, dark figure on a white, just several copies well away from the original. And I've made my efforts to get back close to the original, and I have some frames from the original, but I don't have the entire film. This right here is from John Green's copy. It's about a 3rd gen, I think. But I was able to improve it using, some correction techniques for lens defects, chromatic aberration. If you shoot a film in color, your lens focuses all the colors, but not to the same point. There's only one lens that will focus them all to the same point, and that's a fluorite crystal lens. And all the rest of them, even the expensive ones, when you magnify the flaws. And the flaws are that chromatic aberration. Like one of your colors might be out of focus while the other 2 are in. And when you put them all together, the out of focus one contributes to unsharpness. The way you correct for that is use a filter and filter out the one that's out of focus. And then you let the others be sharp, and you pick up a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, sometimes up to 10% increase in sharpness. Which kind of rule of the thumb is that if you gain 1%, you're going to see about 10 new things. And when you see 10 new things, then you're going to get a lot closer to being able to make a good judgment on the film. So my whole entire thrust was, or my effort was to get the film into its best form and let it tell its own story. And people can look at it and make up their own mind about what they're seeing. And even on this generated copy, once those corrections had been made with the lens and the stabilization, which is probably 3/4 of the improvement, you can see things like the skin stretching there. You can see the point of rotation of the shoulder. One thing, basic identification is possible. Any creature that has a rotating shoulder is going to be a primate because there's no other creature on the earth that has that. It's called a brachiator shoulder. It allows you to do like the arm over arm if you're swimming, or if you're going through the trees, or if you're just walking across a sandbar with your shoulders and your arms swinging. That's brachiation. That puts you in the category of a primate, which includes humans. That's a really an important thing to see in the film, and so you know it's not a bear because bears don't have shoulders, and so there you start from there, and they say, what else does the film show or tell me? Well, it has mammary glands that are swinging pendulously as she takes her steps, and there's a slight bit of lag time between the step and then the upward motion of the breast, which tells you that they're dense, probably around the density of water. So you make notes of that, because I want the film to tell me what's on it, and so it's pretty easy to get to the point where you're looking at a primate, and then you start to say, well, what tools are up there that we can recognize, and she's got feet that are very similar to a human feet, although bigger. But that's a tool for walking. It's got, I can see 2 tendons in the back knee cup that when the sun hits it just right, you can see 2 tendons. So I know that there are, it's not likely you're going to see tendons through a suit. It's just, you can just rule the suit out.
And did you see muscle movement in the Idaho Bigfoot? You didn't see that?
No. I kind of think you do. You see the curve of the calves and things like that. But in the Patterson film, you see the with it stabilized, the clavels moving under the skin. The shoulder, all of the basic biomechanical things that you see every day in life, and you see there in the Patterson film. It's how she can be up on 2 feet. Without those tools, she couldn't be. So she has the tools of a human being, but the differences being that the density, her mass, and her density, her weight are far beyond the human realm, and massiveness, like Mr. Glickman came up with 1,400 pounds. I'm sorry, but there's just not any people that can equal that. Not that we know of. So This thing is living out in the wilds of Northern California and maintaining a tremendous body mass. Eating specifically just from the bounty of the earth. Whatever is in season, right there.
That'd be a lot of calories to support a frame that big.
Exactly. So you can assume that the metabolism is almost has to be somewhat different. What it does with its food. I know that in the Patterson subject, when in the very early part of the film, when she's walking straight away from Patterson, he's down below her. He's scrambling up an embankment, and he's filming up at her, and you can see right up her rear end, and you can see that between her cheeks the hair is worn away, and it tells me that somewhat she's spending some time sitting down and doing some scooting around, and that can kind of she's in a kind of a tight place, a place where she needs to move from point A to point B. Getting up is not what she prefers. She scoots. So this is an area that's got a really rough country. It's the foothills of Mount Shasta, actually. And Mount Shasta has just a lot of lava tubes, and there's been some legends about Mount Shasta. I read one. A man said he found a series of tubes that went from Mount Shasta to the headwaters of the Bluff Creek drainage, and that caught my eye. So the people who see Bigfoot at Mount Shasta along the McCloud River may actually be seeing the same Bigfoot that gets seen at another time down in Bluff Creek or along the Klamath River. It's kind of an area where they seem to inhabit. Excuse me.
No problem. Quick shout out. Meg, thank you for joining us. Hi, Patty. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you guys joining us tonight. We've got an excellent show here with MK Davis. And give me just a second, and I will put up Mr. Davis's website for those of you who'd like to look at more closely at some of these videos, because they are fantastic, and he has done some tremendous work on this. Not just the Patterson Gimlin footage, but there's a lot of other footage there you could check out, like the thylacine, which I found just absolutely amazing.
The fence jumper's the one that I like.
Yeah, the fence jumper was a good one too.
Yeah, those East Texas videos, when I first got them, I received them. They were they were VHS tapes from quite a few years ago, and they were in a kind of pell-mell in a big bucket, a big tub. They were about 50, and they were just very difficult to watch because there were long periods of time when there was nothing happening. They left the camera just running. But that seemed to be the only way they could get anything, because, if you tried to make a camera come on when you needed it to come on, they seemed to fall it. They wouldn't get out in front of it. They would come up beside it and tap on it. You could hear the taps, as if they knew that the camera would either be filming them or something.
I've heard some people postulate that there's a possibility that they're able to see the infrared tripwire on those motion sensors. That's why they avoid a lot of game cams, and also avoid safety lights, emergency lights that come on by sensor.
Well, I'll tell you what I saw one do in the East Texas videos. They had a ice chest that they put some goodies in, and put it on a little table, and they put the camera up in a branch or bough, pointing down at the table and it had its own infrared light, and they just left it running. So whenever night shot came on, the infrared light came on, and this Bigfoot came up there. I could hear it in the darkness. Couldn't see it at first, and then I started to see it. And I didn't know what I was really looking at first, and then I realized I was looking at his backside. That he backed backwards till he could reach across and get the ice chest, and then he pulled it to the other end of the table, out of that cone of light, and then he proceeded to check in, look in there and see if there was any goodies. And I gather from that he almost certainly could see that infrared light, because he knew where he had to pull to get it out of it, and he backed into it. He would not show his face. He would not show any of to the camera. He showed.
I think that may be more common among animals than we realize, because I've seen deer in game camera footage react to the camera, not just looking around. They specifically reacted to the camera.
So I think maybe you're right that perhaps they can see, and it would explain an awful lot.
It certainly would.
Those are some of the tools that we have to try to settle the issue, and it hasn't done it yet. And there's been some people who've had all hair in the lens and the photos, and then there'd be something far away and fuzzy, but after all these years that they've had game cams, they have not been the quintessential tool that was, thought that it might be.
Yeah. You have a question from one of the audience members, Mr. Davis. He says, if you could ask MK about Roger Patterson having a Bolex camera as well as the K100 on the trip in 1967, and if he thinks there's anything on that or if there was any footage out of it.
That's a good question. Now, when I was in Yakima, Washington, I visited with Mrs. Patterson, and I was going to take the morning to visit with her and the evening to visit with Bob Gimlin, who both lived there in Yakima. And Ms. Patterson was going to let me have professionally scanned some 4x8 transparencies, these wide format that came right off the original film. And she told me that, and they certainly appeared to be off the original. Their quality was excellent. And I went to a place called Photo House there in Yakima. And there was at the counter, when he heard that what I was doing, he told me that it was his father that rented the two cameras to Roger Patterson. He said there wasn't one, but it was two. And one was a K100, and one was a Bolex. And the Bolex way more camera than the K100. It's something that you would use in a professional production. It's 16 millimeter. They're both 16 millimeters, but the Bolex was just much higher quality. The lens was much larger. It was sound. And so to this day, those transparencies in their quality, I've always I couldn't prove it, but thought that perhaps they came from the Bolex. It would explain a lot more than to try to believe that a 1-inch lens produced them. Which is small, rather small lens. So that goes. I've never heard anyone else mention this, and it I've listened to Bill Munns, and he talked about, he theorized that Roger Patterson took the lens off of the camera and put a larger lens on it, but he never mentioned. I guess he didn't know that Roger had this big Bolex with him. So that the unknowns, when you get into this, it's staggering. The hills to climb are just unbelievable.
Do you think it's possible there's footage we never saw?
I do. I don't think that the Patterson film is a complete film. It's in segments. So you've got some missing time between, but you don't know how much. You can look at the first, and this was noticed right off. I mean, there was arguments about this in the early days, but you see in the first part of the filming, she's looking down like someone who looks in a field for arrowheads. She's just looking down in front of her at her feet, and she takes off, and she makes her way across the little sandbar there, and just about to enter the woods. And then, boom, she's back out on the sandbar in an instant of time, going upstream.
Mm-hmm.
And Patterson and Gimlin, neither one explained it, but it's definitely an edit. There's lots of different ways to edit the film. You can do in-camera editing just simply by cutting your camera off and starting it back. You don't know how much time goes by. Or you can take it into a dark room and you can make some splices and cuts and make the film out like you want it. But it's nothing as easy as it is now, with digital.
Yeah.
People can do that. I don't know for 100% sure what their reasons and purposes were for that, but I don't think it was in an effort to cover over a hoax. I don't think that for 1 minute. Whatever we have that is ours to treasure on that film, I treasure it.
Exactly. One thing I've noticed, and I've watched the Patterson Gimlin film hundreds of times over the years, granted not to the detail that you have. I don't have the software or the skill to take it apart frame by frame, but just watching the image. I grew up deer hunting. I look at things with a hunter's eye sometimes. The way she moves and the way she keeps looking back, and this is just my personal opinion, just based on my own observations. I felt like she was trying to keep their attention on her, like she was trying to distract them from another one. I've seen
there were more there.
Yeah, I've seen that behavior in animals before, like the way a mother rabbit will try to draw a predator away from her litter.
Well, the Patterson film started up on the mountaintop,
Mm-hmm.
where I think the Blue Ridge Road or something like that, Blue Mountain Road, and they ended up down in the creek. And what I've been able to find out is that there were 7 originally, and 5 went down in the creek, and you ended up with first lower and lower numbers until you only had Patty.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also some questions about how many times Patty had been through that same area. Like I said, there's a lot of unknowns, but if you're a rational person, you know that if you've been in this pursuit for very long, that it's not normal Bigfoot behavior to walk in front of two guys and kind of, she had a chance to get off in the trees, and then boom, she's back out again. And that makes people think hoax, if you're of a skeptical mind. But if it makes me think there's just some things about it that we don't know and haven't been told for whatever reason. But the film is good enough.
I agree.
What you see on the film, it overrides the skepticism about the circumstances. That at least for 30 seconds, somebody was there with a camera, and there's about 30 seconds to 60 seconds, just depending on how fast you run it, of a Bigfoot in Northern California. Well, anybody that pursues this, I admire them, and I do not think for 1 minute that it's unsolvable. Hold on just a minute.
You made an interesting point, DA, with the distracting behavior. It reminds me of if you come across a quail's nest. They'll go away from the nest and act injured, try to lure you away, and then you walk up to them and they fly off.
Reminds me of a killdeer or killdeer. You ever seen those little birds?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so.
They lay their eggs on the, they're exposed on the ground, and they depend entirely on this elaborate little routine they do. They'll pretend their wing is broke, and they'll just flop around until they get some predator to chase them away, and then they'll go 100 yards before they'll get airborne. They'll be kind of flapping and running, and then all of a sudden they're healthy again. So that's not, that may, it could be possible that we're something that's contrived, some routine like that. But in the film itself, there's some interesting places. When you stabilize it, it's easier to see, some of your motions and stuff. And behind one of the stumps, there's a part of a little dark figure on the left side, then on the right side, and then you don't see it again as she walks by. So I can't see through that stump, but I suspect something's back there, and I would not doubt for a minute that she was not on that sandbar alone. She was represented by others, but you can't prove it.
Didn't Gimlin make a statement to that effect, that something about it, they chose not to shoot at her because they were worried that they were looking at others at the time they were filming her?
Yeah, he did. He did make a statement to that effect. And I'd be worried about others if I knew or I thought that others were there. Because if you're looking at one that weighs over 1,000 pounds, and it's not even probably the biggest one,
You're gonna walk softly.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I found some tracks down there that are just unbelievably deep. And size is impressive, but the depth is way more impressive. Yeah, because you know what it has to weigh to put a track that broad down into the dirt that deep.
Well, the
It's
concerning thing with this video too is, clearly Patty's female. In most primate species, there's a high degree of, what they call it, sexual dimorphism. The males are so much bigger. It makes you wonder what her mate looks like. If she's 1,000, 1,400 pounds.
that would be Mr. Bigfoot. Where
Sir.
Yeah.
If she stepped on your foot, it'd crush every bone in it. And if he stepped on your foot, you probably wouldn't get any bones back.
Pulp 'em.
It's that's why I say they're not all but certain of that. But who or what they are, that's different. And I've talked to a lot of the Native Americans around there, and they spoke of them as if they were a people. They said in days of yore, way back before white men came, they traded with them, but they were. They said that they were unreliable and dishonest, and would steal your stuff. You couldn't trade with them. You would come, they'd grab everything and run. And so combine that with an affinity for kidnapping women, they broke off relations with them. And
as politely as possible, I would assume.
Yeah, they feared them, and whenever Europeans came in there and brought guns, they left and went to the high country. So that's, to this day, that's where most of them are. In that rugged country up there that you don't see a lot of people.
What do you think of some of the stories of Bigfoot attacks?
Well, I really don't know, but I know there's a lot said about missing people nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. And, of course, the Ape Canyon incident and things like that are historically documented. The Bauman incident, which again is just a story, but still the stories are very compelling.
The Bauman is less impressive to me than the Ape Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't doubt that it could have been a Sasquatch there, but the nature of the man's wound seemed to indicate a cat. That's their method of attacking.
The throat.
Yeah, well, they'll try to break your neck by coming up behind and hitting you with their full body.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can break your neck, then they'll asphyxiate by grabbing the windpipe. And that's the way he's described the man. The fang marks in the throat.
But he didn't mention anything about being fed on, though.
No, he didn't. But he came back in a decent amount of time too. He didn't lay out there all that long. But there again, it's just my thoughts. It's just, I can be wrong on that. I don't doubt that there was a Bigfoot involved, but I don't know if, Bigfoot typically it don't bother with biting your throat. It just
snap your neck with its hand.
You outright. With his hand.
Tear your arm off.
Yeah. That seemed more cat. A cat may have taken advantage or something. That's out there where there's a lot of cats.
True.
And I still
probably even more in those days.
Yeah.
I was just thinking how endearing I used to think it was when my cat laid across my throat. Apparently, it wasn't endearing at all.
It's trying to suffocate you.
Well, a cat is an apex predator. There.
Yeah, my cat was definitely the apex member of our household.
I've seen some cats, some big mountain lions, 200 pound mounted. That thing,
It's a big cat.
he hits you from behind unexpectedly, and they do it. And a lot of joggers get it, and a lot of bicyclists get it because they trigger that instinct, you know.
Who says a healthy lifestyle doesn't kill?
I was in the Army with a guy that when we went to basic training at the same time, he was from up in Montana. And when we got our heads shaved at the same time, he had these great big scars on the side of his head. And I asked him, I'm like, dude, what are those scars from? And he just kind of laughed. He goes, yeah, I almost forgot about those. He said, I hadn't seen them in so long because my hair was over them. He said, but when I was about 7 years old, we were camping up in the mountains, and a mountain lion grabbed me by the top of the head and dragged me out of the tent. And if my dad hadn't a shot at it, it probably would have carried me off.
Wow.
No doubt, it probably would have.
Did Patty have a broken foot? I wasn't aware of that.
A broken foot? I haven't. I'm not aware of that either. They got what they call a mid-tarsal break that she has, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not a broken foot. That would be an additional joint.
Yes.
You know, but that's been argued back and forth. You know, I don't. I prefer to avoid the subject because I'm not an expert in it, but I do see in the film where there's a lot of flexibility. I didn't see any injury to the foot.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever heard about possible injury to the foot. Although I do remember hearing Dr. Meldrum talk about a cast he received of a Bigfoot with a damaged foot.
Yeah,
But that was a
that
different
too.
incident.
I've got that cast right here with me right now.
I really wish your camera worked.
Grover Krantz talked about one like that too.
Yeah, this came from their collection. It came from Grover to Jeff, and then I got my copy from Jeff. He did 3D scans, and he makes these excellent copies. I mean, they're just great copies.
I'd love
I'm
to have one.
imagining you holding it up for the camera and all of us drooling over it right now.
Well, I don't. If I wish I knew what the problem was, or I would surely get it straightened out. Let me just try this. I'm gonna unplug it there for a second.
Might just start working. Facebook user asks, do Bigfoot hibernate during the winter, or are they seen all year long? I've heard of many accounts of them being seen in the wintertime.
Yeah, I wonder about some things, but I've seen trackways and stuff in the snow, but I wonder sometimes when I read something that I forgot the name of it was one of the early pioneers in Idaho, and he described across. He called them very extremely primitive people that had been hibernating up under an embankment in sand. They had covered themselves with sand, and they had come out, and about half of them had died. It was, and the others were crawling about, eating sweetgrass. And the story seems so absurd that historians don't take it seriously, but that's the way he described it. I've got that book here. Hold on. I think I could find that for you and read it exactly like he put it.
That would be awesome.
Let me see if I got it marked here. Let's see. Thomas Farnham was the explorer. He says they wore no clothing of any description. They built no shelters. They eat roots, lizards, and snails. They provide nothing for future wants. And when the lizard and snail and wild roots are buried in the snows of winter, they are said to retire to the vicinity of timber, dig holes in the form of ovens in the steep sides of the sand hills, and having heated them to a certain degree, deposit themselves in them and sleep and fast till the weather permits them to go abroad again for food. Persons who have visited their haunts after a severe winter have found the ground around these family ovens strewn with the unburied bodies of the dead, and others crawling around them who degrees of strength, from a bare sufficiency to gasp in death, to those that crawl upon their hands and feet, eating grass like cattle.
That's
Well,
bizarre.
it is bizarre, but and people, that read his account say, well, that can't be. That has to be an exaggeration, or maybe it's prejudice, that he's actually prejudiced against, the more primitive Native American tribes, and he's exaggerating, But I don't know. Maybe that is possible, but what he actually says seems to describe something like what you see on Patterson film. Just walking out there in buck naked in the wild, and just living hand to mouth.
Yeah.
Well, I can't imagine what it would be like running across something like Petty. A few years ago, my family and I went to the Field Museum in Chicago, and they've got an exhibit there of some of like the megafauna and things like that, the giant sloths and the short-faced bears and so forth. And they have a reproduction of a Gigantopithecus that you can stand up next to. And it's just awe-inspiring, just to think of something like that. It's crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah. I was down in South Louisiana last week. After they went through Hurricane Ida, I was just north of Slidell. Somebody had their Halloween stuff up, and they had these skeletons, complete skeletons. I mean, they were good looking for accuracy. He said they were 12 feet tall, but I see them being higher than that even. And I drove by there and I looked and saw those. I had to turn around and I went and got a picture taken because it was such a good illustration of what actual height looks like. When you want to talk about giants or talk about things that are X tall, when you get up beside them and your neck hurts looking up at them, you get that real good perspective, So anybody say I saw a 12-foot this or that or Bigfoot or whatever, I know because I stood there what that would amount to. And everything goes up exponentially when you gain height. Your width goes, your mass. I saw an entire video on that. A guy had done the calculations and stuff.
I think it's called the cube square law.
Yeah, the cube square law, exactly. And so he says that if you get up beyond 10 feet high, run into problems with the ability of the material that you're made of to hold the weight. So you're going to have to alter the way that you walk. Instead of doing the big spread steps, you're going to end up keeping the legs under you a little more, changing the angles. And then if you got higher and higher above that, then then your feet are going to begin to appear different. They're going to be designed to hold tremendous weight, and they're going to be a little less long and a little more blocky looking until you can get up to extreme heights, and then your weight's going to be so extreme that you can no longer be supported on 2 legs, and then you're going to have to be forced onto 4 in order to support the weight. It was a real interesting video because if you're interested in Bigfoot and some people, by extension, giants, what it would be like to be that tall. And he says that you will be surprised at the appearance if they got to those massive heights because of the weight problem. Bone material is still bone material. It only holds so much. You can beef it up, but still, you have to change something when you get to these really heavy weights. That's why I say that if you could analyze Patty, you're going to find out that she's got a tremendous amount of fur per square inch fiber, and that it's going to take a lot of blood and really rich blood to feed it. So you're going to have a large heart, big lung capacity. Most of the time they're in high altitudes, so you're going to have this big barrel chest, and everything that you see on the Patterson film is with rationally what it should be. It's another thing that goes toward its authenticity.
S. Dresden has a question for you, Mr. Davis. He says, what do you think the likelihood that our government established the national parks as game preserves for this tribe?
That's interesting. I don't know. I know that in the Bluff Creek area, they went down in there, and the roads that access the Patterson film site, they chisel plowed them, allowed them to wash, and then they put these huge barricade dirt berms to prevent any vehicles from going in there. And then they kept the gates locked as long as they legally could every year, and currently even now. So I don't know what their methods are, but it sure seems like they're trying to keep people out.
That's one of the theories I have as well. What Dresden was saying is because Teddy Roosevelt wrote the book The Wilderness Hunter, which documented the case of the Bauman incident, and there are a number of people that think that Bauman might have actually been Teddy Roosevelt as a younger man, and he kept his name out of the book because of his political aspirations. But then that makes sense when you realize he's the president that founded the national park system.
Perhaps you hear. It's only if someone knew that and was willing to talk would you ever get that.
Yeah, it's an answer you'll never get.
Answered. I know. Does the government know about Bigfoot? I'm positive of that. And one of the reasons why I know that is because there was a man down there in Bluff Creek who photographed the trackway of Patty after the filming, and he worked for a logging company, and he was a timber cruiser. He was 19 years old. His name was Lyle Laverty. And if you've ever seen the Jeff Meldrum's picture of that footprint with the mid-tarsal break, it's got a bend in it. Mm-hmm. Lyle Laverty took that picture. And Lyle Laverty, as of a few years ago, not now, was Deputy Secretary of the Interior. So there's just not much way that they don't know.
Well, there's also some of the kind of apocryphal accounts that came out after Mount St. Helens erupted of the military hauling Sasquatch bodies out undercover.
I've heard that too. I've heard of the Fort Lewis shootings
Mm-hmm.
And some other things. I've read some material on the Fort Lewis shootings, and they allegedly took a body or a dead one into a lab and were stunned by what they found, that there was present in the blood was a considerable amount of chlorophyll. Yeah.
What would cause that?
Well, chlorophyll. Well, we know what that's for. We
Mm-hmm.
know what it does, but it's a plant.
Right, photosynthesis, yeah.
Yeah, you make sugar out of in the presence of sunlight. So I wouldn't have any way of proving that or anything, but yeah, as a person who likes to think and do thought experiments, it would explain how they do so well on so little, But clearly something else is them, because they weigh so much, they're so dense, and then they're living off, if you ever been out there, I mean, there's things you can eat, but when you have to eat by picking Oregon berries or blackberries or dewberries or any of the other numerous things that grow out there, skunk cabbage, you're trying to maintain a body that size. That the metabolism is going to be a little different. We couldn't do it. We would fall off until we were gone.
Mm-hmm.
Man, they go up and down those mountains
like a mountain goat.
Yeah, their strength is just incredible.
Well, it would certainly explain a lot about the diet, their dietary requirements. I'd never heard that chlorophyll thing before. That is very intriguing, to say the least.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something about military and about those type things, is that information rarely ever stays behind cover. It gets leaked, and sometimes it gets leaked in a lot copious amounts, and other times it's in little tidbits. A little bitty. Somebody that was there that was shocked by what he saw. The chlorophyll. Next later, he might mention it to somebody. It just gets out like that. I know one thing that I saw, and I've got a copy of it. So, survival map issued by Fort Lewis. And when they do survival training, you stay 2 weeks out, and wherever they drop you off, and they come get you, and you survive however you can. But they give you a little map, and on that map they show a little description, a picture of everything that you might run into animal-wise that you could either use or avoid. And one of them is a Sasquatch.
It's actually on the map.
It's on the map, and it's printed by the military.
How funny.
Recently, the Ohio Department of Conservation has been releasing Bigfoot information videos, and they're not done tongue in cheek. They're done very seriously, and they're pretty interesting videos to watch.
My younger son was stationed at Fort Lewis. I'm calling him tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe he can tell you something.
Or see if he can get us a couple of them maps.
That's what I'm thinking.
I want one.
Yeah.
I bet he's seen them if he don't have one.
Well, it reminds me of those maps that were issued in World War II that showed like the silhouettes of the planes, the various planes you could encounter. It's like, oh, this is a German such and such. This is a Japanese whatever. I'm picturing like animal silhouettes, deer, antelope, Sasquatch. You know, you're looking at the you see like a silhouette of Patty in mid stride. You know.
Yeah.
Big bold letters, do not approach.
Yes.
With a
Hostile.
silhouette of Neoma in front of it running.
I don't know if I got that on my hard drive, or I have a hard drive that went out on me a while back. Let me see if I can hear it. I would get that map if I can find it right quick. Let's see here.
I'm just sitting there thinking about if something like Patty really is 1,400 pounds, the massive amount of food that would have to eat to keep itself going. Yeah.
Well, if it eats like us, and
Yeah.
processes food like us, I'd say that it's one mistake that a lot of people make is that they hold the Sasquatch to our standards.
Well, true.
I was comparing it to a horse. I mean, a horse weighs between 900 and 2,200 pounds, depending on the breed. And, the old expression, eats like a bird or eats like a horse, should be reversed. Birds eat their weight daily, and horses eat very little in comparison. I don't know that a Bigfoot, we'd automatically assume it does eat that much.
Especially if it was on a high protein diet. I mean, look at the amount of protein you could get just from the liver of an elk. There's a huge amount of protein just off the liver alone. And that's not counting the rest of the elk. Just the liver is packed with protein.
It's all a balancing act. It's how much you get from it versus how much you expend to get it. And so, when you're talking about keeping yourself going, you have to keep your expenditure down to a bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way Native Americans out in the Great Basin. The average person, a grown man, lived off a handful of seeds and whatever animal he could kill. Doing that now would be very hard, but their bodies were acclimated to it. They didn't have a lot of extra body. They had very lean frames, but they managed to survive and thrive. A handful of seeds on average per day.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even in modern times, I mean, look at the survivalists we've talked about before. Les Stroud, a lot of his little capers. Granted, he's only surviving for several days, but he'll have a handful of food. A few nuts, some berries, whatever little greenery he could find, maybe a bug or two. It's never what I would consider a meal.
Well, that's another good point there, Steve. There's how much protein are in insects.
Well,
certain types of grubs, worms, beetles. I mean, an omnivorous, and look at the great apes. They'll eat. They're very omnivorous. They eat primary vegetables, but in plant life. But they're not above eating something else. Chimpanzees, especially. Chimpanzees will at times will kill other animals or other chimps. And
they're cannibalistic at times.
oh,
And then you get to looking at the billy ape, and there's reports of the billy ape hunting and killing lions.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said, it's got to do with how much you put out versus how much you get back. If you're on a deficit, you can't continue that way.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
You eventually will run out and pass away.
Well, yeah, you look at those the great cats. The things like the cheetahs and the lions and whatever. Because of the energy expenditure that they use to do their hunts, they've got to be successful. 1 out of every 4 or 5, or they're done.
Yeah. Starvation's always the next meal away.
The most the most efficient killers in the continent of Africa. Out in the plains, the Kalahari, and all that. It'll surprise you. Are wild dogs. They have a successful kill rate of 83%, and
Wow.
that is just you might get away from a lion, but you're not likely going to get away from wild dogs.
It's too many of them.
They work as a team. They know when they go out, they're going to get some food.
It's the same with wolves. More often than not, wolves have enough in the pack. They're going to get what they went after.
Yeah, and they got huge hearts, and they can keep on going for long periods of time.
That's why wolves have been known to take down like bison, which are many times their size.
So if you've got a family group and 2 of them are hunting and 5 of them are eating off of it, 3 of them are conserving their energy, correct?
More than likely.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Davis?
Did we lose him?
I'm here.
Oh,
I found the map.
Oh, awesome.
show it to us. Show it to us. Come on.
I'm going to see if I can show it to you.
If you've got it in PDF or in JPEG or anything, just send it to me in Facebook Messenger, and I can just upload it and put it right on the screen.
Okay, I hit the share button. Do you see anything?
I see DA.
No,
I see
sir.
Steve. I see me.
Okay, in green, Chrome tab. Maybe I need to put it in Chrome tab.
It may not let you since you're not listed as a host.
Okay.
But
Could you see anything there, or do I need
No,
to?
sir.
I don't mind sending it to you.
I would love to have a copy of it anyway. So,
Okay,
If
you
you
want it? You want it through Messenger?
yeah, if you don't mind, send it to me in Messenger, and maybe later send it to me as well on
Your email?
yeah, my email, because the Messenger will compress it, but it'll be good enough to show on the air.
Okay, hold on. I'll have to go back to Facebook. Everything is kind of slowed down because of all the different functions I've got going.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna wait on it. Well, it wouldn't load it up. Let me get off a share here.
Okay.
Maybe that's taking up my. No, I'll try it again.
It says Facebook user took out the chimpies and basically vegetarians, but once in a while they kill to get meat. True. Facebook user, if you could go to, where's it at? Got to find it again. There we go. If you were to go to https://chat.restream.io/fb, would be able to see your name. We're not actually seeing that in our feed.
Alrighty, I'm making my way there. It's taking me a little time, but I'm getting there.
No
Hey,
problem.
no worries.
Sir. No problem at all.
You
talk
know,
amongst yourselves.
it was funny. We were talking about these different animals, having a certain diet and then having a different diet when necessity brings it on. I remember when I was a kid, my parents wouldn't give me a dog or a cat. We had a brother with allergies, whatever, so we had pet hamsters. And I remember the hamster gave birth, and had a few pups. And of course, we gave them plenty of food. They had all this fresh green stuff and nuts and all kinds of things. But one of the young hamsters resorted to cannibalism and started eating one of its siblings. And we thought it was the weirdest thing, that a hamster, strict herbivore, eating meat.
And if one of the young dies, the mother will just eat it.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that.
And that may have been what happened. Maybe one of the young died and the other,
just started eating it.
You should have it there in the messenger.
Okay.
I've got the expanded version, and I got to zoom in on the actor of the Sasquatch.
Okay. I will have those up in just a second. Here's the overall image, and
that's
closer
cool.
image.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing.
I love the shark and the killer whale.
Yeah, that's all the things that you could run into that give you problems and stuff.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to mess with a killer whale.
Yeah, last time I was up in the mountains in Washington, I had to run in with one.
I'm glad they included badgers. Mean little flying bastards.
But it's hard to imagine them not taking it seriously if they put it on that map.
Exactly. Well, I like the fact that they put a moose in there too, because a lot of people think just because it's a big ungulate that it's not a threat, but moose are dangerous.
Well, they're terrifying.
Yeah, they will kill you. Yeah, those are great images. Thank you for sending those, sir.
Oh, you're welcome. I got it from a friend who got it from his sister who was stationed at Fort Lewis. And she sent it to him because of his interest in Sasquatch. And then he shared it with me. And I've had them for years.
That's pretty neat.
They are really cool. I'd like to get able to get hold of a copy of that map just for my collection.
That's not the complete one. She did. You see, it says training area.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the map. I guess she didn't want to send the entire expanded map, but
yeah, it's still neat though.
It's definitely a military training map.
Yes, it is.
I love it.
So they know not only that there is a Sasquatch, but they know pretty much about what he looks like.
Yep, and they know to leave it alone.
Orwell says, if you run into a killer whale, you're doing it wrong.
Different people are dropped off at different places.
And if you're near the ocean, that's a great way to eat.
If you're going swimming out there trying to spear you a fish or something, I guess you might run into problems.
Well, it's interesting, when you think about the basic simplicity and common sense in most military training manuals. Think about the instructions for operating a claymore mine. This side towards enemy. That.
Hey, I've known a few people who needed that instruction.
Hey,
I have as well.
Straight and to the point.
Yep.
Well, I think about the chlorine, and I kind of tell myself, well, it's hard to resist the temptation to put human standards on them. We don't really know what they are.
Right.
So, I only know, and this is from a lot of years of research and gathering data, that if you think they weigh 500, probably weigh 1,000. I've learned that I believe that to be true. They're just very dense, and they have lots of problems with people trying to shoot them, and then a hunter shoots them, and they just. My daughter outside, I guess they're trying to feed her dog. Let me knock on this window.
Yeah. It's probably another good reason why Patterson and Gimlin didn't shoot at Patty. You think about just from reading some of your stories, DA.
Yeah,
You know,
I wouldn't want to take a shot at one without without something that had some punch to it. I mean, your brush popper guns are smaller. It probably would just piss them off if they're that dense.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
I'm thinking of traditional rifle.
People say that even the 1924 incident at 8 Canyon, they would
Probably
shoot.
didn't kill it.
Yeah, I mean you can kill them, I suppose, but you better have like a 458 Weatherby
Or a 45-70.
something that elephant gun that penetrate 12 inches of bone would probably do it, but don't do it. I mean, just
Yeah.
stay clear.
Even if you get the one, it's probably not alone.
Right. I mean, you got all those these other things that can happen. Even if you were good enough to do that, I don't know that you would ever make it out of there. I've got pictures of the trees where they have busted the trees all around in a circle, and these trees were like 3 or 4 inches, and they just snapped
If you can
them
snap
off.
a tree that thick, your neck is not going to be a problem.
And some of them were the pressure straight down on the trunk had split them.
Well, and I was thinking about even if you had these elephant guns, it's been my observation that most of these weapons, the heavier the ammunition, the less rounds it holds. So
Generally, they're single shots when you get to be that big.
They use a double barrel elephant gun of that size, and that's just you get one backup.
Yep. And like even my buddy's 308, which is considerably larger than the 5.56 that I've got. Those 3 rounds. That's assuming that you're really good and can drop each one with one shot. That takes out 3 Bigfoot out of a family of 5 or more.
They're gonna get you. They're gonna get you.
Anytime I go out to film or to look around at locations where there have been sightings, I never go unarmed. But I also go with the opinion that the only way I'm going to try to shoot one is if I have no choice. I have no intention to hunt one. I don't want to kill one. I have no aspirations of dragging one in for science. I just go out to satisfy my own curiosity, shoot some video, and have a good time doing it. But I don't intend on shooting anything unless I don't have a choice.
Most guns that you use for normal hunting. There was this man. He was bear hunting with dogs. He was sitting on the edge of a ravine listening to his dogs down in the ravine. All of a sudden, this Bigfoot comes up out of the ravine and sits down on the edge just right down from it. And he's looking at it. He's holding his deer rifle. And he says, I didn't think I would do anything to him if I shot him. I said I didn't dare because I was going to make him mad. He was just too big and huge. And, that gun was way too small for that. And so he didn't take a shot. And the thing jumped, saw him and jumped back down into the ravine. The dogs weren't after it, but it had caused it to run out of the ravine. That's what people normally say that know their weapons. Unless you're toting something big, really big, you could really mess up. And those miners they shot, they did shoot one that they say fell off
Mm-hmm.
cliff, but
then they ran over and looked over the edge and never saw it.
never saw it.
Yeah.
But it's probably didn't kill it.
Probably not.
Yeah. Well, it was funny when several months ago when we had Nick Valente on, and we were sitting there talking about our potential near miss with that dog man. I'm like, yeah, I always carry a 40, and he starts laughing at me. He goes, "You'd be dead." I was like, okay, I've never thought about being underarmed with my 40 caliber, but clearly,
take something for lion attack or bear attack, but don't think that's going to get you out of anything Bigfoot related.
Yeah.
May
exactly.
get you into something.
I've got a fairly significant shotgun that under most circumstances I would put it up against just about anything, and I wouldn't count myself as having good odds of coming out of a Bigfoot attack even with it.
Yeah. Well,
That's why you take one extra bullet for yourself.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
Keep one for you.
Yeah.
If you could have seen those tracks, well, I might have seen them on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that we filmed when we were there this past June.
Well, you had one incident down in the Bluff Creek area where you got really close to one and didn't realize it later until you looked at the video, correct?
Right. Yeah, it was in the video, but it was so dark down in there, and I'm looking through the little small viewfinder, and I didn't see it. It wasn't until a review that I saw it had something of white or light colored in its hands, and I saw it move, and then I backed it up, and I said, "Well, there, look, that it almost certainly was a Bigfoot. It didn't have any clothes on. It was uniform in color. It wasn't one of us. There was no one else there. It's just 25 miles back in the woods, and only one road in, and there's nobody else in there. This was about 1/10 of a mile for some film site.
Wow. You were pretty far back in there.
Yeah, it was back in there. You could get in some bad trouble back in there. No kidding. There's enough stuff in there besides Bigfoot to get you in trouble. And this last time we stopped at a convenience store there in the Hoopa Reservation, and we bought some stuff to take with us. And the lady asked us where we were going, and she says, "Oh, I love it there. It's beautiful, but I would never go there now." And she said there were 3 people about 10 years ago that disappeared back in there. And I don't know if they found their remains or what, but she says that nobody goes in there anymore. And I thought back in 2009, I was in there, and the gate was locked way longer than normal. I mean, this was up in the summer. And so we just put our backpacks on and walked way back in there to Louse Camp, and coming back, and we had come across a rock slide, and we were trying to make our way across the rock slide. And this truck comes from the other side of the rock slide. It was a white truck, and it was the Ranger, and he had come in from another way, Fish Lake way, and he said that was the first time anybody'd been in there. And he said, "I want to give you a ride out." He says, "I'm not supposed to give anyone a ride, but if I don't give you a ride out of here, you could die back here."
Did he elaborate as to why?
He did not.
Can we assume it was an exposure?
No, I think it was in relationship to the 3 disappeared people. That put us back into that time period in 2009.
Yeah.
So they were keeping people out. They kept that gate locked. And I don't know how he knew that we were in there. Maybe it was just happenstance, but he did give us a ride out. And then he let us off at Fish Lake. And then he went into Orleans and got another person to go and get a key and open that gate so that we could, if we went back in there, we would have a vehicle with us. And so that's how it ended. We went back in there again. So we ended up right back down there. So if I had known that people were disappearing in there and stuff, I might have thought twice about it.
I can understand that.
I don't know why. Why did he? We didn't die going in there. Why he thought we would die if we stayed back in there. Oh, this was in June. There was no danger of exposure or anything.
I was just being silly.
Yeah, he said it. He said it in a rather mysterious way. It was, the whole thing was mysterious because he wasn't in a ranger suit,
Mhm.
And he had a beer between the seats, and he told us we could die if we stayed back in there. That's a strange thing to tell somebody.
Yeah, very.
Give him one more beer and you might have got a little more information out of him.
Maybe so. Sometimes you don't know. People talk and you don't know for sure or appreciate the information you're getting,
Yeah.
You don't make those connections. Or I didn't know that anybody had disappeared back in there. It wasn't until this lady this last time told me. And it had impacted the Native Americans wouldn't go back in there anymore.
Sounds like they had good reason.
It was good. Something really had happened to put fear God in them, and maybe would have me if I'd known.
Well,
Sure
I can't say that I blame you. Do you watch many movies on the subject of Bigfoot?
I do sometimes. I watch YouTube.
Have you watched the movie Bluff Creek?
I might have.
It's a fictionalized account completely, but I thought it was really interesting because it looked like it was actually shot in the right area. It was the locations were beautiful. It definitely had to be shot somewhere in the deep woods of California, and it was an interesting movie.
You go in the upper drainage of Bluff Creek, and that creek looks pretty much the same everywhere. You go down, it's just winding in a canyon. You got high hills on either side. It's a very unforgiving land. Very rough, and it gets worse as you go back toward Mount Shasta.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the peak of Mount Shasta from Bluff Creek. It's a kind of semi-volcanic. We have found places where the ground was hot, just hot to the touch. We've had some electronic screw-ups, some kind of geomagnetic or something happening there. I've had a couple of one time I had a brand new camera that the viewfinder went out. It just went to snow, and when I left that area and went back to working, and it's worked well ever since. I had another place that the autofocus wouldn't work on my camera. It wouldn't focus, and got away from that spot. It was at a place where rocks had slid, and it could have been hematite, any of those things that affect, magnetic fields. But the countryside is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. something natural.
Yeah, it's lots of things going on there. It can cause failures, electronic failures, and things.
Yeah.
And plus, the military uses it. They fly. They supposed to, but they fly training flights. Yeah, just above the treetops. I mean, screaming through there with these real fast jets, which is why they don't want drones. Flying people. They won't tell you why. They say no drones in any national forest. But that's why. That's where they do it. They take some of their planes. I've been in here probably 15 times. And I believe you become, without any doubt, you're looking at something that's real that was filmed there. Then, you're looking at something that's rare.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, if you're going to solve anything or find out anything, you almost have to keep a presence at least as much as you can there. If you could man the thing, keep somebody down there every day of the year, you'd have a ton of Bigfoot sightings down there. You'd have them in March, early April. Then you'd have them again in October and early November.
I have a couple of questions for you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. Are you done? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, that's good.
My first question is, what do you think about Dogman? I mean, have you?
Seeing's believing. There's not a real good film of one. If there was, I would love to work on it, see if I could, improve it or stabilize it or whatever, so that if it showed something good and proper biomechanically, then that would tell its own story, just like the Patterson film has. I don't dismiss it. The first time I've ever heard the word Dogman was years ago from a native in Oklahoma, and I was rather taken aback by it. It's I've come to realize that when something gets hybridized, and not maybe not for real, but the word dog man is a hybridization.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's not for real that way, but it reminds someone of what halfway human, halfway dog. Maybe they didn't see it that well. They ran off on all fours, stood up, looked at him, ran off on all fours. That type thing. But until you get a film or a video, or maybe pictures do serve less well.
Well, funny you should say that, because Steve and I, year and a half, almost 2 years ago, went out to shoot a promotional video for my books. And we just shot a short little promo video, didn't think anything of it, got back in my vehicle and left. About 8 months ago, we showed the film on a show we were doing called The Nightmare Hunter. And one of the gentlemen in the audience said, "Hey, I saw something behind one of those trees in the video," in which Steve and I hadn't seen at the time. And some friends of mine who are pretty good at video editing went in and pulled something out. And I'll show you what they pulled out, and I could send you the video if you wanted to see it, to see if you can pull something more out. But this is what they pulled out. And when we went back to the location in the daylight, there was nothing in that spot behind that particular tree that it could have been. And on the video, if you watch the video, you can actually see it move in reaction to my flashlight. In this, it's kind of grainy, and you can see where the hand is placed on the tree, and the face of what looks dog-like to me. That's my interpretation. I could send you the video. I can show the video here on the air. Hey, you got your camera working?
Yeah, I figured it out.
There you go.
Well, hello, Mr. Davis. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, same here.
Let me go to my YouTube channel because I posted it up there, and I will share the screen, and you guys can watch this video. We have a slowed down version that's a bit more stabilized, but you can still only barely see it. Now to set this up, I will go ahead and run the clip, and I will stop it at the point where they saw something behind the tree. And in this video, it looks very small on this screen, but I can send you the unedited video, the raw video, because I still have it. What I uploaded to Facebook probably got compressed, but I could send you the unedited video for you to take a look at it. But here's the video. It's a fairly short video. I will pause it where we see something where you can see something behind the tree and show you the general area.
Okay.
But on the slowed down, you can clearly see it duck back behind the tree. And like I said, we went out there in the daylight, and it was easily 7.5, 8, at least 8 feet off the ground where it was at. Now, as I shine it right there, I don't know if you can see my mouse moving on the screen.
I can.
But it would have been behind this tree right here, which was only about 30 yards from us, maybe, if that.
Something like that.
Yeah, you can kind of see something behind it in this image, but if you watch, when the light pans back, whatever it is, you can see it duck back behind the tree. I'll try to go back a few seconds. Let me slow the video down. Back speed. Let's go to 0.25 speed. Okay, as we're coming back, if you look to that tree, right about there, you should be able to see something. And it ducks back as my flashlight got closer.
That video it's not doing it justice.
Yeah, it's too small on this screen. If I will
it seems odd to me that a lot of the reports of dogmen they were trailing behind a person. People stumble upon a Bigfoot off his front, or maybe it's off to the side through the woods or something. The dogmen seem to be more predatory. They seem to be wanting maybe to sneak up on you.
We showed that video to Nick Valente from the North American Dogman Project, and that's what his conclusion was, that we were being stalked. I just sent you the video to the Facebook. Okay. I uploaded it. Not Facebook. I sent the Facebook Messenger. Sent you the link to the video on my YouTube channel. But if that's not clear enough, I can send you the raw video I took with my camera. Well, actually, Steve took with my camera.
Okay. Well, I'll see if I can work with it a little bit and make it a little higher contrast.
That would be fantastic.
Easier to see.
I mean, if it turns out that there's nothing there, I would probably actually sleep a little easier knowing that there was nothing there. But seeing that and a couple other images, here's a still from the video where you can see it. It's circled. You can see it sticking out behind the tree.
Okay, gotcha. Hold on just a minute. Leave it there.
Well, it was definitely a little unnerving, that's for sure.
Yes.
because we didn't see it when we were there, and we were just kind of going about our business.
Yeah, we were not there
trees.
looking to find anything cryptid related. We were there shooting a promo video for one of my books.
I'm going to just take a screen capture here and just blow it up a little bit. And then I'm going to do a little filtering and see if it improves.
You get a kick out of Marshall Sirota's comments there, DK, about now they know why you wear a hat.
Pretty much.
So,
Heck, I am.
Yeah, Steve and I hadn't set out to capture any kind of footage. We were just there to shoot a quick promo video for a book I was writing at the time called The Lakeview Man, and which is set in that area. And that particular place where we shot that, to give you a little history, it's called the Joe Bald, as in bald head, Joe Bald Recreation Area, just outside Kimberling City, Missouri. It's a pretty rural area. It used to be a campground until the Army Corps of Engineers shut it down back around the year 2000 sometime, after there were several disappearances associated with the park.
Oh, the disappearances again. You know that.
And every attempt they've had to reopen the because it's a big campground. Every attempt they've had to reopen the campground, the Army Corps of Engineers has shut down.
Wow. You know the people that they found dead, the whole family, in Mariposa County. Yeah, you know that.
Oh no, that's the different one.
This man and his wife and his dog and his daughter all were dead on a hiking trail.
That one in California just recently.
Right, they closed it, and it's still closed. And for a couple of weeks, they closed down all of the national parks, and they said it was due to an unknown hazard. They never explained what it was, but that area is still closed.
Yeah, they said something about a weird algae bloom, which I'm really not buying.
No, I think they did. They proved that not to be the case, but that was a theory they used early on. They don't know. They don't know what killed them.
Yeah, you gotta watch those man-eating algae.
Well, if it had been an algae bloom, then it would have the people that found them, the search and rescue, would have probably been killed by the same thing.
Well,
it would have been more than just the couple who died too. There would have been a lot of mammals that died from there.
Their water, they had the rubber bladder, on a backpack.
Mm-hmm.
It was still half full from when they first filled it. They didn't get any water out of the creek bed.
If you still got your own water, you're not going to drink out of a creek.
No, they know that wasn't what did it. Now let's see here.
And if I was going to drink out of a creek, I would use something like this, like a life straw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
filtration system. I'm not going to just drink straight out of a creek because I don't want dysentery.
I drank out of Bluff Creek with no problems, but it's all snow melt. Coming out of that high country, there's not. To have an algae problem, you have to have higher temperatures.
Say in the cold, you got a better chance of getting Giardiella or something like that than
Folks, I need to take a quick break. I will be right back.
All right.
Alrighty, we'll keep it going.
So my second question, if it's okay, is
All right. When he gets back, I will have he will have that picture waiting on him, the filtered version.
That's awesome.
Go ahead with your
What were you
question.
saying?
my second question is about the different types of Bigfoot. When you talk about the Bigfoot, are you seeing different varieties, different
That's a good
species?
question. There seems to be differences in geographical differences. Here in the South, there's some differences. They tend to be thinner here, a little more aggressive, more hair covered, more apt to go down and run on all fours. So I couldn't swear that they were even the same thing. They're different enough, but there are differences in the Pacific Northwest. If you've ever seen a film called the Freeman footage, the Paul Freeman footage, it shows something very different from Patty.
Okay.
A larger, bulkier, and it walks differently with the up and down lumber. Then you look at Patty; she's a lot more human looking. The hair is very sparse in places, and she's got a foot that's like a large version of our feet. It leaves a track like that. When you look at the Freeman track, which I have one right here, I will show you the differences. Freeman. You see this track, the toes are forward on the foot, and they're spread out like sausages, and the foot is hourglass shaped. And when you get the Patty, try to do this without breaking anything. That's the Patterson.
The toes are more human looking.
The toes are much more human looking. The foot, what I believe that accounts for the differences. One's in Walla Walla, Washington, the Blue Mountains, and the other one's in Northern California. The Ranger, the one I spoke of before, like I said, people talk. They get to talking. They drink a few beers and they go to spilling things.
I've got that image you sent over to me, Mr. Davis, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, give me just a minute. I'll be done about this. The Patterson subject. He told me that in that area in the 1840s, on up to about 1900s, there were 10,000 Chinese, and they were hydraulic mining gold, and they had their families, wives, kids with them. And this propensity for the Freeman type of Bigfoot was steal. It's what the Hoopas told me. They would steal their women. And occasionally, not every time, not even often, just occasionally, there would be an impregnation. And
With survivors?
Survivors, right. And I believe that Patty is somewhere down the line between if you tested her DNA, it would say mother Chinese or mother Native American, father unknown.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's only in that area now. Only in that area. You away from that area, and you find nothing but the true giants. What I call the true giant, the kind that has the sausage toes and the forward toes and the hourglass foot. And I tell people that if you encounter a track that looked like that one I showed you, think real hard about don't follow it. You could get in a world of trouble because those things are. If you watch footage, he lost sight of it, and it was just staring at him. It quit running. It wasn't even running away from him. And he lost sight of it. The viewer of the film lost sight of it. It wasn't until it moved that you could pick it back up again. And if that he said when he lost sight of it, he said, Jesus, and he took the camera down. And when he put it back in the thing, he took off walking and he picked it back up. But you're in a world of hurt if you can't find that thing again.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't running.
Wow.
And the Hoopas told me that if you encounter one, you speak to it in whatever language you use your language. It's not important what you say. It's important that it thinks you're not alone. And you back away while you're talking. And then when you get your chance, you go. Because if it thinks you're alone, you may not survive the encounter. The Patty type, most often than not, will just walk away. Just what you see her doing there in the film. But so there's a difference. There's a difference in the two. There's not a lot of the old, big, true giant Bigfoot in the Bluff Creek area. It's mostly all hybrids. But you get away from there. You move into those other places, the Olympic ranges and up and down coastal ranges, away from Bluff Creek, and you're back into the true giants again. The great big Bigfoot, tremendous size.
What would a height range be on one of those?
They don't seem to have an upper range. Ask Ron Moorhead, Sierra Sounds guy.
Yeah, well, he had Ron on the show, and he was talking about one that they had to have been at least 15 feet tall because of the stride length.
Those are true giants.
Oh my God!
True giants. He was in peril. I don't know if he fully realized it at the time as a young man, but he was in peril because those type they don't seem to have the built-in caution. If they think that they have the upper hand, then that's the whole purpose of trying to talk to them while you're backing away, is to make them think that you have other people over here, or over there with you. And maybe you might have a chance to get away. But if you don't do that, then you could be a permanent resident of the forest.
Become another missing 411 case.
Yeah, right. You'll be in David Pilates' book. Nobody will.
Yeah, the only way I want to be in a David Pilates book is in the acknowledgments.
Yeah.
That's right.
Forward.
But it's indelibly linked to Bigfooting, even though he never says it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, go ahead with this. Did it help any? Did you think that helped any?
It looks like it cleared it up a little.
Let's see it.
Can you magnify it?
I will try. Let me bring it up on another screen because it's easier to magnify. Let me share the screen. It doesn't seem to be magnifying any.
Yeah, smaller, a lot smaller.
Weird.
Well, it's slowly growing.
I think that's about as big as I can make it. But you can definitely see something sticking out behind that tree.
Let me see if I can get it on my end. And hold on just a second. I have to get back over here to share. Well, where is share? There's share. I think. That's not share.
I can my screen. I've got a pretty big version of it up.
There. Now I need to go.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay. She get it. Entire screen. I'm navigating this thing without any knowledge.
Well, I'm right there with you. I'm still learning it myself.
Mine stayed small too.
Here, let me try something. Hang on. Let me get to the
that's considerably bigger. There you go. That's it. You've done it. Now that protrusion beside the tree there, is that it? That's it?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, that's even creepier than the green one.
It's definitely sticking out. Yeah.
And this, it looks more, when you get close with this, it looks more humanoid and less dog-like.
Looks like a troll.
It's creepy as hell, honestly.
I'll have to say this. Well, the woods at night is a creepy place anyway, but you get something.
And you can even see the hand on the tree.
Yeah, you get moving about. How big is the tree? Do you remember?
The tree's good size. It's probably the diameter of a bowling ball or bigger.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And that hand shape was over 6 feet off the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went out and did some comparisons, and me standing next to that tree was nowhere. My head was nowhere near as high off the ground as that one is. I estimated it was easily 2 feet above my head, and I'm just shy of 6 foot.
Well,
That is just wrong.
I don't have any advice about dogmen. Other than
our first pass over, it looked like a dog type head. But looking at this, even though it's really grainy, I'm not sure if that's not like the profile of a face.
Or Gary Oldman's Dracula.
Yeah. It looks like the front of a face leaning out from behind that tree.
Reminds me of the silence of Doctor Who.
Yeah. No. It's definitely something with a face, and you can see the hand.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it's Dogman or what, I don't know. But I'd be interested to see what you could find in that video.
I'll be happy to take a look at it. Scott Carpenter, he when he goes on his jaunts into the woods, he keeps a camera on his shoulder pointing backwards,
Mm-hmm.
and he picks up images like that and videos where there's movement. And he says that he's seen numerous times there in East Tennessee.
He has one that's got a dog man with something sitting on its shoulder. I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of that juvenile Bigfoot video that Les Stroud has, where it's crossing around behind him or whatever it was.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that one.
yeah, it's in one of the seasons of Les Stroud's Finding Bigfoot. He's walking and talking to the camera, and as he's just pacing along talking to the camera, behind him about 30 yards, you see a black form of a smaller Sasquatch appear from behind a tree and dart across the clearing and into the tree line, and he never knew it was there until he went to review the video.
That's
I
what
know
I
how
see
that
out of the
feels.
woods.
What's that?
I said, I know how that feels.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Alrighty. See you when you get
Mr.
back.
Davis, I can definitely say that just you changing the perspective on that image, I'm more convinced there was something behind that tree than ever.
Yeah.
Well, it sure looks like.
Hey, DA, would you send me that edited picture just
Sure.
whenever you get around? No hurry. I just want to have it for my little collection.
Not a problem. I'll just forward it to you right now.
Hey, no worries. I like Bobfoot's interpretation. We're just looking at our local crackhead.
Yeah. Well, if it's a crackhead, he's 8 feet tall.
Well, the nice thing is we were armed for crackhead. So, we
were armed for
okay there.
crackhead. Yeah, we were both armed at the time. I was still a deputy sheriff at the time, and Steve's a concealed carrier. Both of us were carrying handguns, but I don't know if it was 8 feet tall that I'd wanted to take a crack at it with a 9mm.
Mm.
Well, 8 feet tall, if you've ever. That's why I said it helps to have perspective.
Mm-hmm.
When I stood and looked up at that skeleton that was supposed to have been 12 feet tall, I looked like a little bitty thing. And if 8 feet tall, I'm still going to look pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
8
yeah.
feet tall is big.
Well,
This-
it's
There's only been a few human beings on the planet that ever made it that tall because of pituitary gland.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so much ridiculously taller than normal people. I mean, it was just, that is huge.
Yeah.
It's 8 feet tall.
well,
If you do find something in that footage, I would love to have you back on the show with the footage, and we can break it down on the show, because that's kind of frightening for Steve and I, because we were there with our wives and neither of them got out of the van. Steve and I were just shooting a little promo for my books, and that was it. That was the whole sole intention. We didn't see anything, we didn't hear anything, but if you look at the entire video, there's a number of spots you see eyes shine in the background behind us. And then we jumped back in my van, went into Branson, and had dinner. I mean, It wasn't like we were out on a Bigfoot expedition. I was just shooting a location video.
How far were you from Branson?
About 30 miles.
I was at Branson earlier this year.
I wish I'd have known that. I'd love to have got together and taken you to dinner.
Yeah, we rented a condominium thing, and we had the whole family there, extended family.
Well, next time you're in the Branson area, let me know.
I appreciate that. I will.
I would love to take you out to dinner.
Branson was kind of a hot spot for the coronavirus there during that time, which I really don't know what a hot spot is.
I don't either.
It seemed to kind of jump around, I don't know that overall what the final outcome of this pandemic is going to be, but mathematically speaking, the more people who get the virus, the less people who are going to get it again.
I would hope.
So I kind of see, that's why Branson would be hot, and then it'll start to die off. Some of those people will go somewhere else and get another place started. Then it will die off. And
Well,
we're kind of coming back. People are going to these ball games. There'll be 80,000 people there. And they're not having a huge super spreader again. Yeah, some people spread it. It seems to have began finally reaching a saturation point, but it has affected Bigfoot tremendously. Tremendously. My wife and I were on the Mississippi coast. She's a travel nurse, and I was doing visits over to Honey Island, Louisiana. The Honey Island swamp monster is supposed to be a thing over there. I actually jumped up something. I don't know what it was. It jumped out of the bushes and took off. And it sounded like it was running on 2 feet. That night, they closed down Louisiana. I wasn't able to get back till this year. So, would I have made a discovery? I don't know. That saved my life. I don't know, but it affected the course, and I'm sure all over the country in different places. California was locked down. I mean, that's Bluff Creek and all that area. I made it back. Not really sure if I wasn't supposed to be in there or not. Anyway, I went. And so, people are back out and moving about now again. But there was some real dead space there. Where I guess the more important things were working themselves out. It's the whole coronavirus. I'm really glad that all of y'all are okay. I had COVID.
Oh wow!
Like I said, my wife I knew she was subject to bring it home, so I had already researched it pretty good. I had me a little cocktail of therapeutics. I hit it early and hard, and it didn't seem to ever get bad with me.
That's fortunate. I'm glad it didn't.
Yeah, I've got some of the. I've got diabetes, which is known to be a kind of a vulnerability, and it never seemed to bother me at all. COVID.
That's great.
And my daughter got it, my son got it. Just kind of through the family, and no one suffered much from it. We don't end up, this variant don't end up being a big deal. I think maybe it's going to be, tapering off.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if Bigfoot can catch it. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, they were saying dogs could get it.
I think my dog did have it. He had something about the same time.
Yeah, and they've had tigers have gotten it.
Actually, COVID is common. The COVID virus, cats can get it easy.
Mm-hmm.
But years ago, 2015, I took some Japanese filmmakers back into Bluff Creek, and really, I didn't expect anything. And we got back in there to the sandbar, the very same sandbar that Patty walked on, and it's grown up quite a bit, and different stuff's growing on it. And I came across a set of tracks. They were 10 centimeters deep, which they had a centimeter tape, which is about pretty close to 4 inches. I couldn't make a dent, and they made their way across, and they finally they got up on some rockier places and ran out of tracks. But the tracks were full of leaves because it was in October, and I was so excited about the tracks that I got down there, cleaned the leaves out of several tracks. And when I got back home, I was running a fever and was sick. And I stayed sick from all the way till the following February before I was finally able to shake it. And I wondered about it, and I called the Japanese people and I asked them if they'd gotten sick, and they said no. I was the only one, and I was the only one that cleaned those tracks. So I had some point blank video take. I was cleaning the tracks and filming. And I reviewed that video, and there was a blob of mucus in one of the tracks. Just stopped. I reached my hand right in that stuff.
Yeah.
And that night, I sit around the campfire and smoke, and you rub your eyes, and whatever it had transferred to me. So that if for what that's worth, I feel fairly certain that they can share germs with us.
I would believe it.
It walked like it was sick. It was like, like this, and it left in the direction of the mountainside, and I happen to know what's up there. It's a little flat spot on the side of a 45-degree hill. And it's covered in ferns, and there's a waterfall coming down through it. And it's a place of, and that's where it was headed. And at the time, I tried to talk those Japanese guys into letting me go up there, and they wouldn't do it. They didn't want me to leave them. They were tongue in cheek until they saw those tracks, and it was no more tongue in cheek anything after that. So
it suddenly got very real.
Real. So whatever it had, I was at, and I tried. We had a lot of antibiotics in our medicine chest, and I tried them all. And I finally, in February, was able to get CPRO to work. But it wasn't because it was working on that. I had beat it, and I had a secondary infection, and the CPRO cleared that up. But I just outlasted it. But it was hard and tremendously. It was like nothing I'd ever had, and it's something that they can get that we can get.
Especially if they're genetically that close to us.
So I learned a lesson. I hope I learned a lesson about carrying protection. Don't let excitement cause you to drop your guard, because the hazard may not be what you think it is. It may not. You think of Bigfoot pulling your head off, but you don't think of getting a germ from one of them.
Right.
You know, so people that collect, forensically collect like scat and stuff, they better be careful.
Wear gloves.
Wear gloves. Make sure you got some sanitizer.
Just walking through the woods a few years ago, I contracted Lyme disease, so hand sanitizer didn't save me.
What part of the country do you live in?
Tennessee.
Tennessee?
North Central.
There's very little Lyme disease in Mississippi. I don't think they've ever had but one case, and it came from somewhere else.
Yeah. We don't have much here in Missouri either. We've got a little bit more ehrlichiosis, but we'll occasionally see Lyme disease.
Lyme disease was an East Coast thing, and a lot of people, think it's sort of like the COVID, an engineered thing.
Mm-hmm.
They suspect Plum Island, up there in the government laboratory in New York of producing, because the first case was right across the river. So they kind of halfway suspect it's sort of like Wuhan, kind of as the epicenter. But I've had a lot of good friends that suffered tremendous diseases like slow motion.
I still get the strange cramps in my legs and feet. My whole body will just cramp up. It's the only symptom I still have regularly. But it was pretty miserable. I thought I honestly wanted to die rather than wake up each day. It was awful.
Well, I'm glad you're recovering.
Me too.
Yeah, I test for it regularly, and I still have. There's a panel, and Steve probably knows a lot more about this than I do. But you test like 1 to 5, and I still test 2 or 3. But I think that I can't take penicillin. It's a no-no for me. And I think the antibiotic they give me isn't exactly the most effective one, because I have a feeling penicillin is what they're supposed to give you, but I can't take it because my tongue gets all fat and furry.
Yeah, doxycycline is one of the go-tos.
Yeah, is it?
Treated those, yeah.
You suffer from tongue lycanthropy?
When I take penicillin, I do.
It affects my gut real bad.
I swear I take penicillin and my tongue goes, it gets too big for my mouth. I didn't even know that's what was causing it until I had emergency surgery and I got an infection in the incision, and I went in and they said, well, have you been taking your penicillin? And I said, well, yeah, but look at my tongue. And of course I stuck it out and there wasn't anything really wrong with it. And they said, what do you mean? I said, it feels all big and furry, like I can't really talk. They said, you might not want to take any more penicillin. Oh,
numb tongue.
Numb tongue. I can fix that.
Well, there's some other mystery diseases like Epstein-Barr that they don't really know for sure where it came from, but it hurts people bad when they get it, and it's a viral thing, just like COVID or Lyme disease. You can fight it, but it's going to be a protracted fight. You're going to, even with the antibiotics, it's going to take a long time to get your energy back. Energy will go to all-time lows with Epstein-Barr.
Yeah.
And so how many things, in the world can take people down and cause their lives to be low quality?
I'm pretty sure there's enough things in this world to do that none of us are going to get out of it alive. One or the other is going to take us out.
I had to travel all the way to California and find one for me in a Bigfoot track of all things.
In mucus. Oh God, in mucus.
I got real good pictures of it. It's jiggling. It's on a leaf and on the ground. You know, the leaf.
Bigfoot Jello.
And I put my hand right in it and picked it up.
That is so gross. That is just so gross. I'm sorry. Oh, you got Bigfoot boogers on your hand.
It wasn't gross.
Ooh, it would be for
I
me.
didn't know it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just, when you said that it was like,
It's all right.
yeah,
I said so as a public service.
appreciate that. Woo.
Why do I have that image of John Belushi from Animal House holding up the Jello on the plate?
Oh, you guys are terrible.
Trying to find a picture of it.
Here's a picture of the Bigfoot boogers.
I captured some skills off that.
Forever known as Big Loogie.
Yeah,
Damn thing sneezed all over me.
public service announcement. Do not touch your Bigfoot snot.
Oh my, that's so wrong.
On many levels.
On many levels.
On many levels.
It's really hard to gross me out, but there's something about snot that just does it every time.
You have a Bigfoot snot gag reflex.
Oh, I do. Don't say that.
Well, when I saw it, I knew the answer.
Yeah. The answer to my question is, will I ever go back? No.
Oh.
Lord.
It's such a rare thing to find something like that, a trackway. And I told those guys that. I said, y'all have won the lottery. You've come down here all the way from Japan and walked upon these tracks. And little did I know that I had won something more.
You now have Bigfoot antibodies flowing through your bloodstream.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
I do. I figured that maybe somebody might get interested in it one day and be willing to test me and see what exactly I do have.
Yeah.
Sure, once you have it, the residuals are there for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Found the cure for the Wuhan flu here.
It may be why the COVID didn't hurt me too bad.
There you go.
Sasquatch.
It's a hard way to learn a lesson, I tell you that.
We start talking about Bigfoot snot, and suddenly we're all 12 years old again.
You're killing Naila here.
I'm trying to find a good
I'm going to
picture.
throw up right on the screen, guys. You're not gonna think- I feel a bit flustered.
Got the vapors.
I do. I swear I do.
Let me see if I
Not me.
My
I'm in my
goodness.
prime.
I'm sure you deal with that stuff every day.
It doesn't even faze me at all.
Oh, it's so funny. There are so many things that don't faze me, and I don't know what it is about snot that just grosses me out.
Yeah, I've been a nurse for too long to have an issue with it.
Werewolf says in Texas people die every year from naturally occurring anthrax. That's never good. Billy Mitchum says, Mr. Davies, you can sell your DNA and make a fortune.
Oh my God.
Let's see. What have I done? Okay, let's try it again. There it is, right there in that little square, but I can't get it shared. Share system audio. I
Gonna
click
kill her.
on share.
If you can't get it to share, send me the image and I'll put it up.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, that's generally the easiest because the share thing doesn't always work very well.
All right, let me just do that right now.
Look, Billy's emojis. Oh my God.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
If I didn't think that it had some value, it would be something I wouldn't even talk about. But
no, I think it's interesting.
It has, yeah.
Yeah, it does have value. I'm not doubting that. It just, I don't mean to. I'm certainly not belittling anything you've discovered, but oh dear God, why couldn't it have been poop? Could
handle poop better than the
poop
phlegm.
doesn't bother me. Nope.
Poop is the standard thing you look for.
Yeah.
Bigfoot. You don't look to stick your hand in snot.
Oh.
It was
I'm telling you. Vomit would have been better than snot. Okay.
I would have seen vomit.
You're loving this, aren't you, Steve? Now you know why I'm not a nurse.
I am absolutely loving your reaction. I'm going to pee myself before this night's over.
The little green one, that's me.
Oh my God.
All right.
Yeah.
Billy wants to know if he still has some in the freezer.
I didn't collect any.
Probably a good thing.
I promise you, if I had known, if I had seen it, I certainly would have gotten it because there's no telling what all the value of that would be.
Yeah.
Well, the flip side is it could have killed you, though. I mean, if you got so sick from just the exposure.
Then again, imagine what a virologist could have done with it, or somebody that could break it down for antibodies.
You're gonna have to enlarge it there. I got it sent to you.
Okie doke.
But it's kind of that you're seeing almost the whole track there.
Oh, look at the time.
There's a big goober right there on that leaf.
Okay. Well, it's been nice talking to you guys. I actually do have to go. It's after midnight, and this is a really good point for me to just say have a good evening.
Well, Nathan, thank you for being here.
It was nice to meet you, Mr. Davis. You guys have a great night.
You too. Be safe.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, I'll put that back up.
Yeah. There it is.
Oh my God.
I just reached and got it right after this. This is a frame out of the video, and it deteriorated a little bit from sending it through Messenger, but you can still see it.
Oh sure.
Yeah, you can see it. You can see the outline of the track too.
Yeah, it's real fresh. It was real fresh.
How much would you estimate that weighed?
That's the snot?
No, not the snot. The track. The creature from the size of the track.
Well, way over 1,000 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a big boy.
It was big and heavy. I'm telling you. I got video of me trying to stomp my own track beside it with all my weight. This is October. Everything's packed. It hadn't rained in a long time. That type of sand don't roll out from under your feet very well anyway. It's shale sand. Mm-hmm. It's made of little platelets, and it just resists, deforming.
Oh.
I knew when I saw it. I mean, this was something really, really special.
Well, it's probably a good thing you didn't follow it. If it was sick, It probably wasn't going to be in a very good mood.
No. It probably would have killed me. And then come down and kill the Japanese guys.
Yeah, I mean, it might not have been any of you came out of those woods.
Well, something did visit the camp that night. I was sleeping, but they stayed up, and they were ringing a bicycle bell. I had warned them about the bears, and I told them to get a bell, and they got one of these pump bells.
Like on a tricycle?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the camera there. You do it like with your thumb,
right.
And they were just holding it like this and pumping it. And they woke me up and they said, MK, there's something out there. I said, okay. I sat up and I listened myself and I heard a twig snap. And I got the little flashlight and I just ran straight toward it. And they started hollering and screaming because they thought if something happens to me, they couldn't get out of there. And I came back. I was trying to get behind it and get a light on it as it, if it retreated. But I believe that it could have been it because I don't believe a bear would have approached with them ringing that bell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably heard the bell and everything from up there.
Mm-hmm.
It was on the mountainside, 1,000 feet up.
Yeah.
Probably wondered what was ringing the dinner bell, so to speak.
Yeah. Right. It came down after a while to see.
It was like, listen to that. Dinner's ready.
Yeah, it's like the triangle on a ranch.
Ding, 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 ding.
That was one of the most memorable trips I've ever had.
I bet.
Think about it. I was terribly unprepared. I just thought I was just bringing them for some footage, and I really did not expect to stumble across anything like that or have any of that happen. And I ended up packing a virus back home. And I relived that thing every day until I got over.
Yeah.
I mean, I found out the reason why, so I no longer was a mystery. I could see I obviously did it to myself. Can't blame the Bigfoot for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it told me a lot about the inner workings of the Bigfoot, that they're close enough.
Mm-hmm.
They're close enough. I know that if they steal women after enough tries, they can impregnate a woman, and you can catch things from them. So there you go. They're not us, but they're not far from us. They're close enough. They're Homo something, just not a sapien, not a Homo sapien.
Yeah.
And I can tell you what the sacred beliefs of the Hoopa and the Yurok and the Karuks. That whole area is sacred down there. And the reason why it's sacred, there's two peaks. One is Chimney Rock, and the other one is Medicine Rock. And they train shamans up there. And they say that in ancient times there was a human living that was not us. It was a different type of human. And that they went back to the stars from a hole in the sky off of those two peaks.
From a hole in the sky?
They went through a hole in the sky off of those two peaks.
Sounds like those portals you hear about in like some of the accounts of like the Skinwalker Ranch and stuff like that.
So I have that in black and white. And, I've got the official belief. That's why they fought the logging companies. They formed human chains, tried to block the equipment from coming in there. sacred place. So I kind of have a little bit more than the average person's knowledge of that area and goings on in that area and what's there. And it seems like this last time, I had more fear this last time than I ever have. It was, I could see that they had went out and gathered pine cones. And when I'm talking about pine cones, I'm not talking about average size. I'm talking about these sugar pines. They're this long. And they had made a big pile of them. And there was a well-worn path coming up the mountain to that pile of pine cones. Those pine cones were all covered in pine tar. It's a pitch that you can waterproof with it. You can bug repel, and you can actually do your hair with it. The Quapaws, who are the progenitors of a lot of the Indians up your way, they wore their hair like this, on top of their head sticking straight up in a cone, an inverted cone. They used pine tar to make it stand up.
Yeah.
It was an important thing. So I know that they were gathering those pine cones. I brought a whole bunch of them home. I got them in there in a garbage bag. I had some in here. Hold on, let me go get one just a minute.
Okay.
I'll show it.
No problem. I am so glad we had MK on the show. He's a wealth of information.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, he has been researching this field longer than anybody I know, and anything he's seen and heard, he's happy to share, and it's a really great source of information. And I'm learning more. This is the second time we've had him on the show, and I'm learning more this time.
Here's a
pine
small
cone.
That's a big old pine cone.
See, they had them all in a pile. And on here, you can see that white stuff. It's pine tar.
That's a great way to gather and maintain pine tar to get it into those pine cones.
Yeah, and you see it's like a sprinkler all over it. And that's what they were doing. And those huge tracks that went this deep, it was the whole family. They went from the smaller to it was all different size tracks. That's why we decided not to sleep in a tent. We slept inside the vehicle to give some kind of measure of protection.
Yeah.
As it turned out, it wasn't needed, but California sugar pine.
That's cool.
So where have you been that you felt the most in danger at?
Probably right there at this trip. I felt more endangered, and don't ask me why, than I did, when I was down there with the Japanese people. I didn't feel that endangered then, but I felt really endangered. It was a gut feeling, a visceral gut feeling. The explorer in me was tempted to go and walk back that trail, but my gut told me, don't do it.
Do you think it might have been the presence of what you were referring to as the true giants as opposed to the hybrids?
I'm gonna tell you what, it was something really heavy to make a dent that deep in the dirt.
That was definitely a big
And
one.
they stepped on a little small pine cone and crushed it. You know, it was just flattened it.
Wow.
Uh, I didn't really want a part of that.
I don't blame you a bit.
I could not see in any scenario where we could meet up and it would be a good meeting.
Mm-mm.
Something that big, even if they were friendly, they could hurt you.
Right.
You know, I don't know that it's even possible to form any kind of relationship. And that's essentially what the Hoopas told me, that they broke it off.
Mhm.
They tried. They were extremely friendly people, but they just could not do it.
I had a couple of incidents in the Mark Twain National Forest here in Missouri going deer hunting where I got to a certain place and I just had the distinct feeling I should not be there. And I listened to that instinct whenever I get it, and I packed up and left. But that's happened to me a couple times deer hunting, and it's an odd feeling. I mean, you just know on an instinctual level that you are not supposed to be there.
Well, they call it survival instinct for a reason.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know whether it's an instinct or a little bird. People used to say a little bird told me. You know, it's like a little sixth sense.
Mm-hmm.
It just tells you it's not something you need to do. That I could see that trail was freshly worn to the dirt. You know, so I knew that they had been using it, and all the big tracks up top, and I was the only thing out of the ordinary. You know, I was there, and other than that, nobody been in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had to pull a log out of the way to get in there with a Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
I know nobody had been in there. So they were comfortable. They were comfortable coming up there.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just lucky. We didn't spend but one night right there. We got out. We were lucky to not have had the same ones that busted these trees down. You know, bust our tree.
Yeah. Toothaking, I don't know if I could answer that. I just, the times I felt that in the Mark Twain, I was just in a really remote area, getting ready to do some deer hunting, and just I don't even know where it came from. I just suddenly had the feeling that was not where I needed to be, and just I needed to be somewhere else. And I would go a mile or so downstream and be perfectly fine and hunt there the rest of the day. But and there's a couple of spots in particular where I had the distinct feeling like I wasn't supposed to be there, and it didn't go away until I was clear of the area.
Well, I don't have any regrets about not spending time there. I think that was a very dangerous place to be.
You're probably correct.
And for whatever we could have ended up being some missing people.
Truth.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I think I'm going to turn it in. It's after midnight.
Well, we appreciate you being here, sir. We're probably going to wrap up here in a few minutes as well. But thank you for being here. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. You are a wealth of information, and I was very happy that you agreed to come back on. And if you find anything in that video, I would love to have you back on the show and do something just about that.
Sure. I'll spend some time with it. I'll give it due diligence.
Okay. And if you do find anything, I can't wait to hear about it. Like I said, if it's one of those situations where if it turns out it's absolutely nothing, I'm okay with that. I mean, I would rather be able to say, I shot this video, we thought there was something, it turned out to be nothing. I don't want to present something as fact when it's not.
Oh, of course not.
But if it is something behind that tree and it legitimately looks like it, I definitely want to know what it is and what was close to us.
Definitely.
Well, I'll sure give it my best shot.
Thank you, sir. I hope you have a great night, and thank you for coming on, sir.
You guys take care.
You too, sir.
You too, sir. Bye-bye.
Billy Mitchum says, "Did you ever get that feeling as a police officer?" Not there, not so much as a police officer. I did as security a couple of times in some areas of the hospital, particularly one night down in the morgue. I had the distinct feeling I should be somewhere else, but never like in a situation as a cop. There's always like something in the hospital. And one time up on the third floor of the old abandoned surgery at the North Hospital. But like I said, never really like going into a building to clear it or anything like that. It would have been like the security rounds. I definitely want to thank MK Davis for coming on the show tonight. Naomi, thank you for being on until we grossed you out with the getting sick by a Bigfoot snot. I want to thank everybody in the chat room tonight. We've had some fantastic questions. Very lively chat. I appreciate you guys being here. Mrs. Chef Yoda says, and apparently they smoked out the giants and killed them, but I was wondering, do you think that these giants were actually Sabe Bigfoot? Very, very likely. I mean, or the progenitors thereof. Anita says, you're too quiet. Patty says, we need the vaccine with some of those boogers.
Oh, my God.
You're welcome, Bill. Thank you. RJ, thank you. Appreciate it very much, sir. And guys, I want to thank you guys for being here. It was a great night having MK on the show. And hopefully he'll be able to dissect that video and find out what it was that Steve and I captured on film. And when that happens, we will do a full show just on the findings. And hopefully we'll have something really good to share with you guys because, you can see from just the image, there is definitely something there. And that's just disturbing. So I want to know what it is. Hopefully MK, when it comes to cleaning up videos and finding stuff, MK is the man. And this, like you guys have been with the show for a while, know there was no intent on capturing something. That was just Steve and I shooting a promo video for Lakeview Man. That was it. Going out to Joe Bald, shooting a short little video where I talked about the area and talked about the coming book. And that was our only intent. And it wasn't until a year later when Thomas Whitney spotted the movement behind the tree on one of the shows that we even knew there was anything there. If he hadn't spotted it, we probably still wouldn't be aware of it.
Right.
But Steve, brother, thank you, man. Appreciate you. This has been an awesome show. Yeah, we having MK on the show is he's such a wealth of knowledge. I mean, when it comes to, especially when it comes to the Patterson Gimlin, there's really nobody I know that knows more than him. And if you go to his website, which I will put that back up real quick, so you guys can see that. If you go by the davisreport.wordpress.com, there are a ton of video breakdowns on there he did, including some on the thylacine, which are pretty interesting. So definitely check that out. And if you haven't had a chance, hit that like and subscribe button. It'll let you guys know anytime we go live. It's also a great way to support the channel to help us, with the YouTube algorithm and everything to attract more viewers to the show. So hopefully you guys will check it out. Check out all of my books at daroberts.net. And if you want to swing by the Patreon, that's patreon.com/DARobertsAuthor. And you can help shape the future of the DA verse and help us continue to create content like this tonight. So I want to thank you guys. You guys are the best. It's been an absolute wonderful show. And I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. And don't forget to lock that door because those creatures just might actually be out there. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you for joining us tonight on DA Ex Machina. If you ever have an encounter of your own that you wish to discuss, contact us at daroberts@daroberts.net. You can remain completely anonymous if you wish. Pull your covers up tight and keep a nightlight burning bright. Oh, and did you forget to lock your doors?